Hey everybody, I'm Tori Townley. I'm here on the Serve Brew. Hope you got your coffee. I got mine. It's a Monday, so you know that you need a little extra boost on Mondays. But I am so excited to have some new friends as guests today. I'll tell the story of how I came across them in a second, but Pastor Rich and Rachel Irwin from Anchorage City Church in Alaska. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, so glad to have you all today. Thank you so much for taking time just to hang out with us and share your story. I've never met anyone from Alaska. I have a brother-in-law who lives there, but he's not from there. So this is new and I'm excited. My dad's been to, I think, 49 states. So Alaska's his last one. And I don't know if he told you, but he's dying to get there. Yeah. So we're going to try to make that happen. Yeah, now we have friends, so we're coming. Gotta work that out.
Perfect.
That's awesome. So real quick, I want to share the story. My dad works for ARC, obviously, and he was at the MFI conference. Is that right? The MFI? Yeah. Okay. So all of a sudden, I get like all these texts from dad, just quotes. I'm like, what is this? And I start reading it like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. He's like, I'm at the MFI conference, and there's this 7 and 7 speaker, and he's amazing, and I'm about to bawl my eyes out on the third row. You have to meet him. I was like, holy cow, that is amazing. Because it was just my heart, my language that you were sharing. And my first thought was, holy cow, who is this? And my next question was, I need you to hook me up with the server with these people. And he did, and I'm so thankful for that. But this really caught my heart. A lot of times I'll get to meet people through dad, which is awesome. And it blows my mind what they're doing. But then just the thoughts and the perspective that you guys have really was refreshing and unique. So we'll get to that stuff in a little bit, but first, just if you could, just tell us a little bit about you two, how you met, your story, and your family. I'd love to hear about it.
Well,
go ahead.
All right. We're both from Anchorage, Alaska. We were both born and raised. So our dads actually knew each other. So my dad was a church planter all my life, and pastor and a missionary, and Rachel's dad was a pastor as well at a church both of our dads served at. But they were in like kind of a band together or something before we were born.
Yeah.
And and then I was actually in a place in life where I was really looking for a mentor, and I knew the person that I wanted to mentor me was Rachel's dad, Jim. And so I went looking for Jim. And honestly, Rachel and I didn't have a lot of contact before that. I knew who she was, and I really liked her, but my cool guy in a band thing was not working so well. She was rebuffing my attempts to date her. But when her dad and I started meeting together and he really took me under his wing, that's when I asked him if I could ask her out. And to my great surprise, she actually said yes. And we started dating from there.
Yeah, and it was history from there.
Yeah.
So, and we're coming up on our 20-year anniversary in January. So.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
You're old.
Yep. So we're coming up on 20 years, and we got 6 kids. We have 4 biological, 1 adopted, and then 1 foster at the moment. But our family size kind of fluctuates depending on kind of the season of life and how many foster kids we got.
Yeah, our oldest is 15. And then we have a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and our adopted son, AJ, is almost 4. And
4-year-old foster son.
4-year-old foster son. And then our youngest is Moses, and he'll be 2 in December. So,
wow. Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah. So how did you guys, like the fostering thing, is that how you ended up adopting, to do it through that whole system and adopted?
Yeah.
How did you guys get into that? Like, I'm sure as pastors, like you're super busy all the time, and that doesn't mean that you can't do it, but just, it seems like a lot, but your heart is so big. Just what does that look like in your family?
Oh boy. Hey Tori, I'm sorry. Something's happening.
You're good. I can still hear you. I don't see you. There you are.
Okay. Are we back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we're good. We're good.
Well, so Rachel's going to take a call from our oldest daughter, I think.
Hey,
And
family time. I love it.
and I'll
All
explain
good.
the foster care journey. What happened was Rachel's grandma actually was a pretty tremendous example. She fostered, I think, more than 200 kids over the course of her lifetime. And my family always took in people as well. And so we kind of had this in our heritage already. Um, Rachel really wanted, since, from the time we were married, actually before that, when she was a little girl, to be able to take in kids and to adopt and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, when she would talk to me about it, it took me years to get there. I think you're right in part. Mostly it was just my own fear, because we do have pretty packed schedules and pretty full and busy lives. And I was just nervous about whether or not I have what it takes to do it. But my wife is a better human being than I am. So she kept asking, like, okay, is this something that God's saying for us? Should we consider it? Should we keep praying about it? And so we did. And to be quite honest, what really got us on the journey was just kind of a direct word from God. Yeah. She was already there.
Yeah.
Like ready to do it. I was scared, but God really started to address me about my issues with fear and my issues with just where am I placing my faith? Do I have confidence in my own abilities, or do I have my confidence in Jesus, who's actually gonna provide the strength and the space and what we need to do the things he's calling us to? So
yeah,
that's how we got on the journey.
And really it was just God's timing. It was the right time. It was something that I had wanted to do my whole life, but it just wasn't the right time until God brought us both on the same page about it. So it was really clear when it was time. So
that's so beautiful. That's like, yeah. I mean, I've always had that dream in my heart too, to be able to adopt and foster. And then like I got married and I was like, oh wait, that's like real life. Nope, not yet. Can't do that. Yeah. But like, how long were you guys married before this process started happening? I'm just curious for my own sake.
So for me, obviously it was my whole life, but so only about 4 years ago. So a long time.
I mean, it was a long time in your marriage. Yeah. I will tell you though, I think what really changed my heart in the whole thing was meeting our son AJ for the first time.
Yeah.
That's the thing that changed everything. Mm-hmm. So we went to this class, and we had a really hard time getting to the class. They offer it kind of semi-periodically.
Yeah. But
it's difficult to get to. And so we went to the class, and I was kind of relieved, because in the orientation, they're telling you, it's probably 6-7 months before you get actually worked and approved to actually take in a child. And so I went, okay, cool. It's kind of like a pregnancy. You have, several months to kind of get ready and those kind of things. But, Rachel already had her paperwork printed out and filled out. And so right at the class, it was turned in. And to our great surprise, just a few days later, they contacted us. Even though in the class they said they wouldn't read any of our documents for probably weeks. They contacted us right off the bat, and they said, well, we've got this little boy, but the deal is he's really medically fragile, and he was born 3 months premature, and he's got a kind of a host of issues, but would you take him? And then they threw in the kicker that really kind of got my heart pumping was, and you have to be willing to adopt.
Yeah.
And so we were like, whoa, it's one thing to like say yes to a temporary placement. It's another thing to say yes to what may be a permanent placement, and especially given kind of the situation. So he was in the intensive care unit, and like I said, he was born very premature, and
alcohol exposed.
Yeah, so they had all sorts of things, that kind of were the scare off deal, which was, he's really alcohol exposed, and he's got cysts on his brain, and he might have cerebral palsy, and he's got issues with his intestines, and he's failing to thrive. He's how big was he when we saw him? He was
4 pounds.
4 pounds when we saw him, and I mean, he was 3 months old at 4 pounds. So he was really tiny. So that just got me super scared because I was already scared enough doing it. But when I walked in the room, that was the craziest thing. Like,
yeah,
that was just really worshipful.
Yeah.
So when I walked in, what I saw was he was just tiny on this little metal crib, and he was all alone and he's just arching his back and he was kind of screaming, and that's when it hit me that that's me.
Mm-hmm.
That honestly, I'm the orphan.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the one that if somebody doesn't rescue me, I've got a really bad look at life.
Yeah.
That if somebody doesn't love me, even though I really don't have anything to give in the relationship, then it's not going to go well for me.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't adopt me into a family and place their name on me,
yeah,
then what's this going to be like?
Yeah.
And for me, you know, I grew up my grandfather's a pastor, my uncles are pastors, my dad's a pastor. I grew up in the gospel, like, constantly, but to this day, it's the clearest presentation of the gospel I've ever seen. So,
yeah, pretty amazing.
When that happened and God just kind of grabbed me by the face and was like, hey, this is what's going on. That radically changed my heart. And it kind of gave me a little bit of more of a backbone to say, okay, God, we're in.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we're in.
Yeah. And you knew instantly that that's my son.
Yep. Actually, it slipped out of my mouth. So that's my son. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Wait.
Which is so not a rich thing to do. He is very, like,
pretty cautious,
realistic, very cautious, very, like, you know, figure things out. So it was pretty amazing.
But that's how we got started in that.
Yeah.
And then,
we adopted him a year later.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. 2 weeks after we adopted AJ, we found out we were pregnant with Moses, our littlest. So that was a big surprise.
Well, you know.
And around that same time, we took in our foster son too. So, after we had Moses, we had 3 little boys, ages 2 and under, besides our 3 girls.
Wow.
And we've fostered a few girls as well. And yeah.
It's been an adventure, for sure. Yeah.
Golly, I'm already like looking for a tissue Cupid. Thank you so much. That's so amazing. But that is exactly like what, even just in the text messages from Dad, like that is what caught my heart. Like, you guys are real deal. And it's not that people I meet on the streets aren't real deal. I have lots of friends who are real deal, but this is just something so beautiful. And I really feel like the perspective that you have drives your ministry, and it's not separated. Like, a lot of people might question, could I have the capacity and the margin to love like that and love a special needs child or a child with different issues and this transition and maybe this, maybe that uncertainty? And it's like, to me, I feel like I haven't even been to this church. I've only heard a snapshot, but it's like that fuels what you guys do and how you love it. It's not just this is a little thing here, little thing there. It's all just a big harmony, and I love that. And one of the things that we talked about, like with Serve Day, is just, it's an outreach, and I don't even like calling it outreach department. That's what people know. But my heart is like helping people. It's the art of loving people. It's not outreach. It's loving people every single day, and that's what fuels you. That's how God's kingdom is built. And so I just this is why I asked you guys, because I want to inspire people even more how to just have authentic things like that. You don't have to always go pass out bubble gum on the street corner. That is beautiful, and I will put it in a book, and I love the idea, but there's still other things every single day that you can do. So you guys are my heroes. Oh my gosh, I love y'all. For real, I really do.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, sorry, I'm weird. I told my dad, I was like, man, I did this pre-call with him, and I wouldn't shut up because I was so excited. Here I am again doing the same thing. okay. I'm just a fangirl. Anyway, so, all right, my next thought with that, I want to hear a little bit about Anchorage City Church and kind of the story there, how it got started, what makes it unique, and even just share a little bit about Anchorage itself and kind of what the community is like there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess I'll share about Anchorage first.
Sure.
Anchorage is the biggest city in Alaska, but that doesn't mean a lot. Alaska is a really large place, but there's not very many people. The total population for the state is like just about 700,000 for the whole state, and the state would take up the majority of the West Coast if you kind of put it over the top of the map. Anchorage is about 300,000 people when you kind of put everything when you kind of put everything together. So about half the state's population lives in this city. That being said, it's not like a normal city. I think people are always surprised because they come. I even had a mentor of mine come this spring, and he was driving. We were driving from the airport, and he said, "Oh, well, this must be out in kind of the rural part of the city." And I said, "No, you don't understand. It's all suburbs. There's really no like city part of it. It's just like a lot of suburb, and there's no rural part. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. And if you go over that mountain range, you'll get lost. That's it." So that's kind of the geographics of it. But what the city is like is interesting. It is very much a pioneering spirit kind of city.
Yeah.
It has a lot of kind of independent streak to it. So it has a tendency to be kind of like politically conservative to a point, but it's actually, I don't know. It's like
really diverse.
Yeah.
We have really politically conservative people and very liberal people too. And then ethnically diverse as well.
Yeah, it's really culturally diverse. And so the kind of the makeup of the city has changed pretty dramatically, maybe over the last 20 years or so. I just read a new thing because I was actually just looking it up, but there used to be like almost 90 distinct languages spoken in the Anchorage School District. But now there's like more than, I can't remember what they said. It's like more than 140 or something like that. So it's actually really cool that way. It's kind of like, we're not quite sure how it happened, but like it's become a melting pot for the world. And so it's reflected in our churches, in which we celebrate and love to pieces.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's a snapshot of heaven. So get the party started right here. So we've got, a large Pacific Islander population. So Samoans and Tongans and Hawaiians, and a large Asian population, both Korean and Japanese and Chinese, but also Hmong people and Cambodian people and Thai people and all that. Of course, African American, but also Africans as well. So there's a lot of Somalis and a lot of Ugandans and
and then of course Alaska Natives.
Yep.
Lots
bunch of Alaska. Yep.
Yeah. That culture. And
It's
I'm
like
Alaska.
the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Like, I didn't ever think Alaska would be like this, but it sounds so bizarre.
No.
It's rural and it's diverse and it has everything you could ever want. Alaska.
It is very strange that way. We kind of are all scratching our heads a little bit, going, "How did this happen?"
So cool. It's so cool. So how does it work? Like, is there any sort of like, obviously we're going through a lot of racial tension in the country. Like, do you guys sense that a lot, or do people pretty much accept and mix together well? What's that look like?
We probably don't have the same racial tension that we see on the news, but it's hard to know what that feels like not living there. So when we look at, stuff happening in the lower 48, we definitely have our racial tension, and we definitely have a hurtful, shameful history of racism with the Alaska Native people primarily. So that's been we're working hard at repairing those wounds, but it's not an easy process. And so we definitely deal with that. One of the things we've been doing as a church is we've hosted 2 forums about racism in the American church. And so we've just put together multi-ethnic panels for discussion, and said what we're going to do is we're just going to push past the awkward till we can get to the good stuff and figure out ways that we can honestly talk about racism in our own local church, how we can work through that as a congregation, and then how can we help model the gospel to our community. And so we've hosted some of those. They were put on the radio, they got televised. We didn't attempt to do that, but local radio station and local television station contacted us and said, "You guys are doing what?
Yeah.
Can we put it on the air?" And so we've been doing some of that to help address it. We've got a coalition forming right now to help address violence in our city, because it's a very crime-ridden city. We have some really bad statistics. We love our city, but it's got some places where the opportunity for Jesus to make a huge difference is just kind of really obvious. We have a really terrible murder rate right now. We have a really terrible sexual assault, domestic violence rate. Right now, it's actually my father, who actually was the governor's chairman on the Council for Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. He just preached on Sunday, and he addressed this issue directly with the congregation. But right now in Alaska, 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence or sexual assault. That's what the percentages are at. So we've got a lot of work to do in those areas. Yeah. But we are addressing them. We are moving forward. But we've got a long ways to go. We really need the grace of God to give us the strength to do the hard work of addressing perpetrators before they actually act out, as well as helping repair, and heal the wounds that have happened because of those things. But yeah, Alaska has a suicide rate 3 times higher than the national average. So there's a lot of hopelessness as well. Yeah, so it's a strange tension in Anchorage, where you've got really terrible statistics and really terrible things that are happening, but also amazing opportunities and some really incredible things that are happening too. And so I don't know if that makes our city just like every other city, or if it makes it unique, but that's kind of a snapshot of Anchorage.
Yeah, and Rich touched on this, but there is a very independent spirit in Alaska. And because of that, people often isolate themselves. We have 7 months of dark winter, right? About 7 months.
Pretty close, yeah.
7 to 8 months, something like that. And so there isn't a lot to do in the winter, and it's very dark. And so
there's snow on the ground right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. I do not like snow. No, thank you.
But yeah, you have people that really are pretty lonely and oftentimes very lacking in true relationship and community.
Yeah.
Because of that, that independent spirit combined with the isolation. So those are some unique challenges that we probably have here. It also is beautiful. Alaska is incredibly beautiful. So if you're an outdoorsy kind of a person, you usually do pretty well.
Yep.
All through the year.
Cool. I'm learning. My husband is very outdoorsy. I'm trying, so I know somebody for Alaska. We'll get there. But I seriously love how, you're spitting out some of these facts and things, but it doesn't sound like you just study just to say that you know your city. It's like you guys are both so in love with your city. And of course you grew up there, but I feel like you put in this effort because it's based on a love for the people, and it's so true. And just you guys have the eyes to see that in people and see where their hurts are, so that you can bring hope. And it's not like you just look for the darkness so you can say, but God's going to turn every single depth into a height if we let Him. So I really love that about you guys. And it's really unique. I love that you're not afraid to kind of jump in where it's dirty, like hosting these forums. A lot of people might be afraid to kind of jump in because who knows what's going to be said. How do you navigate that? And I
Oh
do
my
want
God.
to ask, it's such a unique idea. Like, what really did that look like if someone wanted to try something like that? What did that look like for you guys?
Well, so my partner in ministry besides Rachel, our executive pastor, Dr. Kim Patterson, he's an African American man, and so he is very well educated, incredibly well spoken. He's a published author, and he's got all the credentials in the world and all that kind of stuff. And I tend to be a little bit more plain spoken, and I'm an old skateboarder. That's kind of what it is. I'm an old skateboarder who played in a lot of punk rock bands. And so Kim and I's partnership kind of models something right off the bat. Yeah. So we have a genuine love for each other. And so what we did is we just jumped in and said, hey, look, we figured this out, and it's taken some awkward moments. We can actually address this because we've lived it. And so what we did is we got, so we have a Hispanic congregation. And so we got our Hispanic pastor. We have a large Alaska Native population. Like I said, we got an Alaska Native leader, myself, Pastor Kim. Anyway, and we put together just kind of a panel discussion and then some talking points. And then we invited people. And what we said is, look, this is going to be scary and it's going to be difficult. And we're going to set some ground rules. But really what we're going to do is we're going to address like a question, and we'll address those things from our perspective as a panel, both individually and as a group. And then we're going to just invite the dialogue. And you can text in, you can email in, you can ask directly in the room. And if we just promise that if we don't know, we'll say we don't know. But if we have a perspective, we'll share it. And if we're wrong, we're open to being corrected later. But like, let's actually, it's just too important to let it go. So yeah, we just kind of took the brave step of saying, we're just going to have a discussion. And we started with just inviting our congregation in it. Cause like I said, it's a pretty diverse congregation. So we started that way, and then it snowballed. Some people found out about it, and then they interviewed us on the radio, and then the city kind of got invited, and then they aired it, they broadcast it on the radio, and then other people heard about it. We're like, can we bring cameras? And so it kind of snowballed from there. But how you could do it, I think, is just purposely partner with somebody who's different than you. Mm-hmm. Work through the, hey, let's talk about the stuff we're not supposed to talk about. Get to know, going into it that honestly, we might hurt each other's feelings for a minute, but we're so committed to the healing that Jesus can bring in this relationship. Mm-hmm. That we're going to go there. And like, if it hurts a little bit, that's okay. That's God shaping us. And then when those relationships are formed, you can invite other people into that conversation, I think. So yeah, that's how we did it.
Beautiful. I love the bravery that it takes. And it seems like this humility is the key to it. Like it wouldn't work if anybody didn't go into it with the humility and just the true heart behind it is to heal. So that's awesome. And I like that it was driven by relationships first. So you can't just jump into it and be like, oh, let's have this talk. It's relational. So that's a big thing. I don't know if it
can be a program.
Yeah. Let's not make this a national effort just yet. It has to be individual for sure. But I do love it, and I think it's such a unique idea. And it might be something that can inspire people because it's definitely a need around the country and probably the world. But super cool. So, all right. I wanted to give you guys a second too, just to talk about, like, you've already given me a few great ideas, but what are some ways that you're reaching Anchorage, just through serving in the community or whatever? Just want to hear a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah. Sure. So we have some pretty amazing partner ministries that were partially birthed out of City Church and just our relationships and partnering with.
You probably need to know something about our culture to understand that. We plant churches and we plant ministries and we attract leaders and we send them like crazy. Yeah. And so a lot of stuff gets birthed out of here. And it's not like it's a city church ministry. it's just that the leaders go to City Church here. It kind of got birthed out of here.
Yeah.
There's lots of volunteer effort from here that goes to it, but it's collectives of multiple groups of people partnering together.
Yeah.
That's cool. So it's like all in the family.
I had to kind of like come to terms with that, you know, we would build relationships with people to send them. It's not that they would be staying here with us forever. It's like preparing, right? So
we're not very good mega church builders. We send them too much.
Which can be painful, honestly, for the people staying. And
sure.
It's something to work through for sure. But we have a downtown soup kitchen ministry, or we partner with the downtown soup kitchen. His dad is on the board, the president of the board or something. Beacon Hill is a ministry to the foster care system, and Safe Families for Children, all of that focused on foster and adoption in Alaska. Pretty amazing. We helped birth that.
You might want to explain those a little bit.
Yeah, so Safe Families, it comes alongside people that are in danger of having state intervention. So people that are at risk for having their kids removed, we come alongside them in relationship in helping them to stabilize, basically. So whether we take their kids for a time or offer them other ways to be able to kind of get back on their feet. So that is a national program that we operate out of Alaska, or we partner with. Mm-hmm. Beacon Hill focuses on, what is it that their focus right now is foster care visitation right now. So they provide a facility and staffing to host parent visitation with their kiddos.
That one came out of our small group.
Yeah, we started a small group.
we were in this secret small group, and it was called Giving Club. And what we did is we had 10 couples essentially that were in the secret small group that we had, and everybody chipped in $100 a month.
Yeah.
And so every month you had $1,000, and we were just looking around, constantly looking for needs. And then we would secretly like meet those needs. and we started leaving like these anonymous, magazine letter cut out, like almost like ransom notes that said, "You've been blessed by the Giving Club," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we were praying one time, and we realized, we could probably do a lot more than just kind of meeting these, felt needs right off the bat. I bet we could address this real issue of child welfare in our city, because we found out the average age of a homeless person in Anchorage is 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty significant.
And so what we realized is you got a lot of single moms living in cars with their kids, going to school and that kind of thing. But like we could do a lot more than that. So we started Beacon Hill to address those things. So it started off as a single women and children live-in program to basically help them get life skills and job skills and the ability to take care of their kids and move forward. But it over time, it transitioned to what it is now, which is we have the opportunity to do legal supervised visitation for parents and their kids who are trying to reunify. And we have the right to be able to supervise those visitations and have it count towards Office of Children's Services actual case plan for them. Mm-hmm. And so they're allowing us a lot of opportunity to partner with them and kind of operate as a government agency outside of the scope of being a government agency. And our local church now is an overflow because there's just too many appointments that need to be done for parents and kids. And so our local church now is actually a space where OCS workers and parents and kids can come and do those visitations as well. So we have them on a couple different sites.
Yeah, and his sister runs that now.
Oh, and you got, man, if you're stoked to meet us, you gotta meet our church plant, Heart of the City, and my sister and brother-in-law, Chris and Charity Carmody. They're killing it. Like they're doing the most amazing stuff you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, shout out. I'll write it down. You have to hook me up. I might have another surfer lined up. That's so cool. I love that idea, but I also wanted to jump back and note, I love that it started as a small group, a secret small group. It's great. But just encouraging for people, like you may start on something and it's kind of a whatever idea and it's fun, but who knows what kind of doors it opens. So I think for some of our viewers, maybe it could just be inspiring, like start somewhere and just keep your eyes open for where it could lead. Like that's a huge ministry, changing the entire community. So I love that. Okay, so sorry, I just had to add a little footnote
No,
there.
that's awesome.
Cool, but is there any other ones that you guys want to highlight? I know you have like a whole list that I have right here of stuff that y'all do. It's so amazing. So, any others?
We have a significant homeless problem in Anchorage, as well as a lot of other things. So we as a church do what we call emergency cold weather shelter. So around this time of year, I think it started in September.
Anytime it gets below 40 degrees.
Yeah. We open our doors as like a overflow or
homeless shelter,
backup homeless shelter. So there's like an actual shuttle that brings folks from those areas around town that need a place to stay, and it ends up being a lot of families.
We're a family shelter. We made some stipulations about what we could do.
Who could stay here, but so every other Friday, we open our doors and basically operate as a homeless shelter. Even though our building is actually not in I would say an at-risk area of town, they are bused over. So,
but
that's cool. Sorry.
Yeah, that started because we just have a few actual cold weather shelters in Anchorage, and there weren't enough beds to meet the needs of the population at that time. And so we started asking, well, why don't we take them into churches? And then we found out it was actually illegal because there's all sorts of stipulations about what you can use buildings for and that kind of thing. So my dad really spearheaded the effort, but we all kind of went in and we lobbied with the municipality, and we were able to get the laws changed, and we got a system set up so that churches could become cold weather shelters. And so now we have 8 churches around town. So every night of the week, a church is helping cover the overflow as homeless shelters for our city. So hopefully that'll expand more in the future here too.
That's awesome. I love that you're working with other churches. Like sometimes I've thought about it before. What if we opened our Dream Center? I mean, in Birmingham, it doesn't get that cold, but we thought about it, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's like a lot of commitment for the season. But if you're rotating, that's super cool. And you're working and you're building relationships with the church and the city. So very smart to do. What does it look like, since it is a family shelter? Does that have any red tape with the city, just as far as, children and men? Like, is there how do you guys kind of watch that kind of stuff?
So each family has to have its own separate space. That's the way that we've been able to navigate some of the safety issues. And people, if you've been on the street for a while, if you've been sleeping in your car for a while, you've probably already encountered harm that got you in that situation. And so you're pretty hyper vigilant to all those kind of things. And we'd like to provide an opportunity for you to be able to sleep, because sleep deprivation will get you into some pretty bad decision making, as well as, potential substance use issues and things like that. So what we do is each family is in its own space, usually its own classroom or those kind of things too, or with dividers. And then we have teams of people who stay in 2-hour shifts up all night, monitoring hallways and classrooms and just making sure everybody's cool, providing any needs. And then in the morning, everybody gets breakfast and that kind of stuff. They get, they get toiletries when they get here. So if they need to brush their teeth or just kind of take care of themselves for a little bit, they get the opportunity to do that too. Yeah.
That's cool. I love that they do get their own space and you guys have little thoughtful things. And it sounds like an incredible opportunity for the congregation of the church. Just, hey, I'll sign up for 2 hours. That sounds like a blast. I would love that. So that's awesome. Cool idea. Okay, anything else on the list before I let you guys start to kind of preach a little bit?
To our community specifically, we do things like like single event things, like school supply drives, and
we do, and we got a food shelf here, and we got kind of all the normal.
Yeah, we do a food shelf. But yeah, those are all kind of local
Mm-hmm.
outreach kind of things that we do.
We have a pretty strong outreach to the motorcycle community. So so yeah.
Wait, what is that? Tell me about that. What is that?
We have a lot. Well, like I said, it's a pretty diverse crowd, and we have a decent amount of bikers who go to our church too. And so you'll have bikers and CEOs and homeless people and all sorts of people just sitting next to each other, which is actually kind of funny, but it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So we have people like the owners of the Harley shop go to our church, and so we do stuff with them. We do a bike blessing where we have a big bike rally in the spring, kind of as the kickoff event for spring riding season. And we pray for all the bike clubs, and we pray for the individual bikers who come, and we bless them and bless their bikes. Bikers tend to be a little bit superstitious, and so we kind of play that to our advantage a little bit, and just say like, "Hey, look, we want to talk to you just for a second, pray over you. How can we pray for you? Giving you an opportunity." And so we do that in partnership with not just our church, but it's grown at this point to be kind of a many entities coming together to do it. It started in our parking lot, but it outgrew it pretty quick. So some of that stuff,
So, and we might talk about this more later, but just our hearts are kind of, we have vision birthing for the creative community. And we're kind of just starting to move that direction in hosting meetings and stuff. Building an artist collective. So yeah, that's kind of a new thing in Rich and I that
we've been artists our whole life, but to be able to specifically reach into the artist community is a different thing, but that's the direction that God's leading us into right now too. So we don't know exactly how to look. We have a roadmap for it and a vision for it, but it's just getting started now.
Yeah.
You're dreaming. I love that. Man, y'all got me wanting to move to Alaska now, and I hate the snow.
Come on, Tori.
It sounds like heaven, man, to serve people there. It seriously does. It sounds amazing. Awesome. And I just love it. Like, you guys have a heart for every little niche and person. It's beautiful. So, okay, with all of this, and I know you could go on and on. I know you guys do like anti-trafficking, foster care, mentoring, schools, all this amazing stuff. And it sounds like you have such a great relationship with the whole city. But with that, one of our phrases at ARC for this year, our theme has been see your city. And so I've asked you how you serve your city, but I really think that the way that you guys are able to serve your city so well is because of how you see it in that perspective. And it goes back to the quotes that my dad had sent me from you, Pastor Rich, and I know it's your heart too, Ms. Rachel, just the beauty in people. And I just wanted to give y'all a chance to really preach that heart. Yes, I said preach because I know that it's in there. Just talk about that perspective and what drives you guys to love so well.
Yeah. Setting Rich loose.
Oh boy. No, I mean, your dad probably told you, he sent you all those quotes and that kind of thing. I think obviously the way that we see our city is ripe. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the best descriptive right now. More than 67% of our population right now identifies as unaffiliated with any faith or religion. It's not a very spiritual city that way. It's a pretty self-focused city. But we see it as right. We see a lot of darkness out there, but we're the light of the world, and we see it that way. We see so many different kinds of people, and in different circumstances and situations. But we do see them as beautiful. There is no getting around it. The idea and kind of our hearts being captured by this message of beauty is a big deal for us. Actually, our church's vision statement is to bring the truth and the beauty of the gospel of Jesus Christ into all the world. That's what we exist for. So this idea of beauty has been pretty heavy on us for a while. and it informs a lot of the way we see people and therefore the way we see our city. I read, it's like I said, we've been artists our whole lives, and that's always been kind of a big theme for us in our individual household, living beautifully, those kind of things. But I started reading books by Makoto Fujimura, who's a world famous Christian artist, but he's also the director of the Brehm Center for Worship Arts. And I was reading his book, Culture Care, and he started really like speaking a language to me that I thought was pretty incredible. And then I started reading stuff by David Taylor and some of the things that they were doing with art down south that way, and just influences from all over the place. But it started clicking to me that I think a lot of the way that we view church operation, if I can say it that way, is really focused on efficiency, and it's really focused on what can we get done. I really struggle with that as an artist, because art is not the most efficient method and means of discovery, of expression. It takes time, and it's just not that quick. And its intention is to bring beauty into the world. And one of the things about beauty is it cannot be utilitarian.
Yeah.
It can't be. If as soon as you try and make art just a tool, the beauty will leave it. Mm-hmm. It won't work anymore. It becomes decoration, but it's not art anymore. So when we look at it in the church and we kind of transpose some of these ideas a little bit, I started looking at Jesus, and I was going, my goodness, Jesus is not obsessed with efficiency. He's not even obsessed with like utility. When I look at Jesus, what I see is beauty, and beauty is expansive because God is expansive. He's not a reductionist. He never has been, never will be. The God I serve, he created galaxies that I'll never see, right? That spin right now. And, you know, my own little personal theology of like when he spoke into existence all that is, it's still reverberating with his voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's not for my benefit. It's not efficient as a means of communicating to me, because I don't even know about those things. It's just beautiful because he's not reductionist. He's expansive. He's lavish. He's extravagant. And when I think about, he could have communicated to us in any way to say, this is what I want you to do, and this is how you should be saved, right? And he gave us the law for sure. But even when he gave us the law, it was beautiful, right? Because didn't his presence dwell in the tent of meeting after the giving of the law? And didn't they know where to go because of the pillar of fire and the cloud? Wasn't he with them in all of those things? And wasn't he more than just, well, I gave you the script, now follow the script. And if you don't follow the script, sorry. I mean, that's go from Genesis 2 forward. It doesn't make any sense to me that we are hyper focused on just what's useful and what's not useful. Mm-hmm. And my concern is that as churches, if we lose sight of the beauty of God, and this is something David Taylor said that really put language to something I had felt for so long, that eventually the way we respond to beauty as a people is eventually the way we respond to each other. And that if we're focused on just pure efficiency and those kind of things, we will absolutely get to a place where we categorize people in our ministries as useful and not useful.
Right.
And we'll focus in on the leadership development. And I'm not against leadership development. My goodness, we've helped plant 6 churches in the last 7 years. We're all about leadership development.
Right.
But if we're just focused on leadership development, we miss out on the gospel.
Yeah.
And honestly,
That's
we
right.
miss out on relationship with God. Mm-hmm. We think of ourselves a little more highly than maybe we ought. We miss out on grace. And we miss out on the people that Christ died for. Right? And so for me, like, it's this idea of if we don't have an understanding of the expansive nature of God, and we don't have an understanding of sometimes beautiful is just beautiful for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Not whether it's useful or not, just because it exists, just because it is, then we'll struggle to figure out what in the world to do with our artists, right? Because we'll reduce them to like, we'll paint the Sunday school classroom. Yeah, that's not it for an artist, right?
Yeah.
They're there to like bring out like the deep truths, right? And if they really do know Jesus, they have a direct link to inspiration.
Yeah.
And their art should be truer than anybody else's art in that city, right? And so we really feel like we can launch artists as cultural missionaries. And as artists ourselves, we had a hard time figuring out where in the world we fit in the church for years and years and years, because we are not the most obvious choice for leaders. We're not type A, go-getters to the core. Yeah. We're a little different than that.
It's kind of quirky.
A little quirky.
Yeah.
But there is a place for us because of the beauty of God.
Yeah.
And there is a place for those people in our ministries who don't fit inside the spaces that we make, right? We've got people in our churches that probably should never lead a small group or a small group ministry. And you know what? They're beautiful. And they're beautiful to Jesus. To make it super personal, right? Like one of the things I shared at the MFI is we've got 2 little boys who have special needs, right? They're probably never going to be the most efficient people on the planet, right? They're probably never going to be the most dynamic leaders in our churches and those kind of things. But man, they're beautiful. And they're beautiful to God. And they're beautiful to us.
Yeah.
And not because of what they can do.
Right.
But intrinsically because of who they are. So for us, this message of beauty, and she's right, I could go on a long time about this stuff, but this message of beauty shapes and forms our hearts for our city, our hearts for our church, our hearts for the kingdom of God, because we do fully and more, we're growing in it, more fully recognize the people that we meet, they're beautiful. It's kind of like C.S. Lewis, right? You've never actually met a normal human, right? You've never actually done that. So I'm sorry, it blanked out there for a second.
It did. It's okay. You quoted C.S. Lewis as one of my favorite quotes of him. Oh my goodness. Okay, keep going.
So I mean, that's part of how we see our city. We know that God is expansive. We know that if we're abiding in the vine, that He's going to give us the strength and the courage to do the things He actually calls us to. I think Rachel and I have a tendency to maybe be overcommitters. And maybe we're just dumb enough to try it. Like maybe it's the kind of thing where we really aren't naive people. I mean, we've loved till it hurts lots of times. Yeah. And we've loved to where it's cost us, and we've licked our wounds and gotten back up, and we'll continue to do that. But I think there's just something, maybe God's just done something in us where it's worth a try, right? If it fails, right, really our perspective in it is, well, what are we doing any of this stuff for? Because we totally realize God does not need us for the ministry.
Right.
Right? Like, He could absolutely do this all on His own. Again, He's not concerned about efficiency as much as we think. Right? If He really wanted the gospel preached to the people of Anchorage City Church, He could make the seats scream it out if He wanted. Right? And the gospel would be preached. Instead, He chose to use kind of inefficient vehicles to do that. But since we know that, okay, so we're not in this because somehow God's so lucky that we're on His team. Oh, like, God, you really need me for this. No, He doesn't. He doesn't need us for this. So if that's not the case, then what's this for? What's this calling for? And we've really come to the belief that this calling is actually for our benefit, not for His. And that really, like, God's connecting us to be in this place of ministry because it's what we need to know him. And so if our purpose is to like be like him and know him and really know him well, then when we do foster care, we don't do foster care just because we've got some kind of bleeding heart. We do foster care because we want to know Jesus.
Yeah, the love of Christ compels us because we've experienced that, right?
Yep. And because we want other people to know Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's part of why this art thing is so huge on our hearts right now is because people we know and love and honor and respect are going to die, and they literally do not have Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just not okay.
Right.
So all this stuff, the heart behind it is, man, well, how can I serve in, foster and adoptive stuff? Well, so that I can know God and be like it. Well, how can I serve in public service and governmental organizations? And right now we've got partnerships going on with Alaska Native corporations, which are a big deal here in the state. Well, why do those things? Well, because by getting to know somebody else who's different than me, I'm going to know God. And I'm not sure what he's going to do in it, but I'm going to grow closer to him. I'm going to become more like him. I'm going to let this experience conform me into the image of his son.
Yeah.
Right? This is the stuff we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? Why take in flaky artists who can't show up on time and are super sensitive and get really hyper emotional about stuff and right? Like, why do that? Because we love them. Well, why do we love them? Because we know that when we draw close to other people, we get to know God. And we get to be like him. So the whole thing is like, at the end of the day, I just want to know Jesus really, really well.
Yeah. And help others to know him the same way.
Good Lord, you people have me a basket case over here. Oh my gosh. No, like I love this. Like it's true he says when you serve someone the least of these, we're all the least in a certain way. And when you look in their eyes, you're seeing him. And it's like you said, you want to get to know him the best you can, but you can't unless you get to know that he's inside of people. He's in their, we're in his image. Even if we're lost, like there's a piece of him buried inside of that person. And so your perspective grows with it. And I love that you guys treat people as one story. Like they're part of a big story, but each of them has a story. They're not this conveyor belt, and we're trying to, as a church, we want everybody to thrive, and sometimes that looks like a system. But being able to see beyond that, like each person is going to be difficult, and they're not going to flow it in every way. We have to look past the red tape and love them relentlessly. And I'm not going to preach what you just preached in my own perspective of it, but so beautiful. And I have to say this every single time. It probably drives people crazy who watch these videos, but my entire life theory, and everything that you said just confirmed it again, is that life's like a kaleidoscope, and basically every person is this little gross broken piece of glass, and God throws it together in his motion and his light, and we circulate, and as we reflect each other's brokenness, that's where the beauty comes in. And so the more little broken pieces, the more colorful it gets and the more beautiful it is. And it's like that's the picture that you guys are painting, is this kaleidoscope. And I also have a theory that his crown's a kaleidoscope, but we won't go into that. Anyway, I just love it. You guys seriously are painting heaven. So beautiful. Miss Rachel, did you have anything to add to what Pastor Rich shared? I know you probably got some tips to you also.
Well, I would just echo everything that he said is totally my heart too. And you had mentioned something at the beginning about having the margin in the space to do things. And I just want to speak to that in that I don't think we have ever had extra margin in space, and we're still looking for that margin in space. But I would say, do not let that be the reason to not be obedient to what God is calling you to. because there is never a perfect time to sacrifice your life. If I can say it that way.
Deny yourself, pick up your cross, as long as you got the margin.
As long as it's convenient for you. But no, our lives are beautiful, but they're so messy and
so
chaotic. And we had little Moses running across here just a minute ago. We couldn't do it without like our amazing community around us and our family and our friends. And we aren't all that, trust me. We're just making it, if I can say that. But God is just, he uses that, right? Like he uses the weak, broken people that we are, because we lay it at his feet and we say, God, we will do whatever you want us to do. Here's our little measly thing that we have to give you. So if I can say anything, it's just don't wait for the margin. Of course, have times of rest and refreshing and support around you if you can, but there is never a perfect time.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to add.
I think the only way that works, though, is you got to have a structure of relationship right.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you like, man, I'm going to pour myself out like a drink offering so that I can get the approval of God, you really are going to burn out, and it's going to go really, really badly.
And that's not ever the reason to do anything is for that.
But if you really are going to the Father first, and then really are practicing it in your own local community, you really do have the strength, because you have the Holy Spirit, to actually do that outside of even just your own local community, but inside of your city.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You guys are so wise. I love the posture that you have, just the humility, like whatever God brings, and you embrace the chaos and let him make beauty out of it. It's so refreshing and just such a cool perspective. So I have more questions, but really just one thing I wanted to ask, and then we can kind of wind it down. But for pastors maybe who find themselves, or leaders in the church, people who have a heart to do ministry, quote unquote, what if they've gotten caught up in some of this efficiency kind of pressure? How would you suggest slowing that down to be able to see the beauty again? Maybe they've lost that sparkle or lost that ability. What would be some things they could start with?
Well, to borrow from an Alaska Native tradition, talking circles. So basically, get a few people that maybe you're curious about, but you just don't know. Or even if it's like your own staff or whatever that might be. And purposely take a few hours and have everybody actually tell their story. If you have 4 or 5 people tell their story to each other, man, that you start seeing that person as a person, not as a tool to be used. You start to actually see them as like, whoa, I get some of your journey now. I get where you're coming from. I didn't know that about you. You, as a leader, though, you're going to have to model it. You can't just say, okay, everybody share your story with me. And everybody knows when you're faking it.
Yeah.
So like, you're going to have to like be the one that's raw, and that's scary as a leader a little bit, because you've been stabbed. If you're a leader, you've been stabbed in the back before. If you've tried to be authentic and transparent, somebody's used that against you. And so you have a choice about guarding yourself, or I think kind of doing the brave work of being transparent anyway. But if you model it first and then invite other people to do the same, I know in our experience, it has a pretty big impact.
Yeah, it takes time, to get to know people and to really hear them and hear their story. But I mean, we're artists, but I would just say do art. Take time and explore that. Those parts of the character of God that we oftentimes just don't take the time to really see. I don't know. do art.
I love that.
Paint a
Do
picture,
art.
take photography class, or I don't know.
No, that's cool. Like, go see the beauty and express what
Yeah.
you see. I think that's beautiful. It's awesome. I think it's cool. It's like such a practical thing that you guys gave, but it's still is the heartbeat of it. Like, I did not expect such great answers. Talking circles and do art. The key to life. So great.
And we don't often have enough time to do that stuff, but we do have to make time.
We make time for
lose sight. Yeah, we lose sight for sure. So
I gotcha. And art, I'm sure can be, I mean, I know it can be different things. So it's like your life is a worship, it's an art, but I get what you mean. Sometimes you need to make time to just operate in your gift. So that's cool. Okay. So I was going to ask what you guys are dreaming, but you kind of have already given me, like, the artist community is like the next thing on the horizon, and just loving on them and creative ways to reach them. Any other, like, little words of wisdom that you'd love to leave people with? Anything, just parting words of advice that we can go home with in our pockets? You've given us so much already, but one more little nugget.
I think I have something I'd like to just address. Because I recognize, so, you know, I'm just starting to figure out who ARC is. But obviously with the real focus on church planting, I just want to give a shout out to the churches that are the sending churches. Because a lot of focus is put on the church planters, and it should be.
Yeah.
And the resourcing for those who go out and plant is cool. I just want to give an encouragement to the churches that send the church planters, because that's us. We didn't plant a church. We actually were successors to an existing church. But like I said, we've had a hand in planting. It's like 6 churches in the last 7 years.
5 maybe.
Well, not.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we've planted a bunch, and man, it hurts. Like, there's no getting around it. It flat out hurts, because it's the people that you invested in and sowed in, and you probably have great relationships with, and they're your friends, and as they go, like, it, I know, like, sometimes maybe the fear for the sending church is like, but I'm going to be diminished. Well, yeah, you'll be diminished, and you will be for a little while. Like, there's no doubt about it. We just haven't ever seen it be where, like, we got diminished to the place where God didn't actually fill back in and bring us into a new level. And so it totally hurts. It's just that it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Right. If we had kept all those people home, I think our church would have gotten bigger. But I don't know if as many people would have come to know Jesus. Because I'm looking at our church plants now, and I'm like, yeah, we never could have grown that fast if you had kept everybody, like, in the same place. And maybe that's just our personality thing. I just want to encourage, though, if you're a church that's sending out church planters, like, know that God is with you, and that he will absolutely, like, take care of home base too.
Yeah.
And he'll rebuild what you send out.
With a double portion.
It'll work out. It'll work out really well. He's got it under control.
Yep.
That's awesome. And it goes back to the basis of what you're saying. Like, if you're more obsessed with the beauty and being part of more stories, then the efficiency, God will take care of that part. So that's the whole theme, and beautiful. Miss Rachel, do you have anything?
I don't think I do. I'm trying to think of something like
do art. Do art.
Yeah, do art.
I'm so a fan. I'm gonna go. Do you have, like, an art page? Can we see your art somewhere? Do you sell it anywhere?
Oh no.
She's threatened to do it for a long time, but
cool. Okay, well, if you ever do, I want that link. All right. So thank you guys so deeply. I think, don't tell the other viewers, but everybody's watching right now, but this might be my favorite serve brew in the whole history of serve brews. And there's been about 30, so that's a lot.
Wow.
But really, I do love you guys already, and I may be moving to Alaska. I have to tell my husband that.
You and your dad should come visit. I think you would have fun.
Oh yeah, I really want to make that happen for him, but for me too. So whatever.
Yeah. We can share. It'll be fun.
That'd be awesome. But really, thank you guys just for the wisdom that you've shared and everything that you do and who you are, what you represent. If people have any questions, want to contact you guys to just learn more about anything you shared today, what would be the best way to do that?
So Rich doesn't ever check social media. But,
sorry, I'm terrible. I'm just terrible at it.
You're R3 Irwin, right? On Instagram?
On Instagram, yeah.
R3 Irwin, and I'm Rach, so RACH_art77.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I had to search. I had to search you guys. That was not easy. I was like, wait, because I think he had an old picture of you, like way back. I was like, he's got to have tagged his wife somewhere. Come on. And I kept thinking, and it was like some other Rachel Irwin. I was like, I don't think that she would post. Yeah, it was weird because she was like this gym girl or something. And I was like, she doesn't post about the church or the family much. I don't think this is her. I was like, she was a real advocate. This is not, doesn't sound like Miss Rachel. Yeah. But found you. It just took a little bit. So now we have it. Cool. Well, is it okay if I pray for you guys before we close out?
Yes, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Jesus, we just come to you today. I thank you, God, so much just for family in far places that I never even knew existed, but here they are, God, and just inspiring me and so many others to see the beauty in the world and the people, God, and just to get to know you more through your people. I just thank you for relationships like this, for inspiration, and I just pray that you will bless the Irwin family, God. I pray that you just continue to give them new dreams and fresh wind in their sails. I pray that you just show them the next steps to take and just continue to be good, God. Let them just see your goodness in everything, every grit and every chaotic moment. Let there just be beauty in it, and just use their voices to inspire others. I thank you for their humility and their generosity, and I just pray that you continue to write great stories through their lives, Lord. We worship you and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you,
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. Y'all are heroes. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.